The air tasted of ash and ozone. Commander Elias Varr stood atop the shattered ridge, watching the last dropships arc into the bleeding sky. Thunder echoed from the bombardments behind him, distant yet intimate, like the heartbeat of a dying world. His fingers curled tighter around his rifle, not out of fear, but because he needed something to hold on to. "Evacuation complete, Commander," came the voice over the calm perimeter secure. "Orders." Elias didn't answer immediately. He could see the dropships retreating toward orbit, black silhouettes vanishing against the burning clouds. The horizon was smeared in red, a planetary wound that would never heal. "Orders, sir." He lowered his rifle. "Fall back. Regroup a command at Site Theta." A long pause. "Sir, Theta's been cleared. You were meant to be on the last bird out." Elias exhaled. The wind blew through what remained of the observation deck, a broken steel structure half swallowed by fire and debris. "Then I suppose I'm not." There was a crackle of static, and the line went dead. He stood there for a moment, unmoving, surrounded by silence and flame. He was no stranger to sacrifice. But betrayal, that was something else. He tapped into the command channel. "This is Commander Elias Varr. Ground Team Alpha 7 stranded. Repeat, abandoned. Requesting immediate retrieval or confirmation of alternative rendezvous." Silence. He repeated the message. Then again. Still nothing. The realization was slow but heavy, like ice water down the spine. They weren't coming back. He had been written off, excised from the war like a bad memory. Disposable. Necessary losses. He could almost hear the boardroom conversations justifying it. Below the ridge, the remnants of his squad were scattered across the battlefield, fallen one by one in a war no longer theirs to win. Some of them still lived, barely. 2 wounded beyond saving, one with his helmet off, staring into nothing. Elias knelt beside him. "Hold on, Kira." The soldier didn't blink. His gaze was fixed on a sky he'd never see again. Elias closed his eyes. The world rumbled again, deeper this time, not from artillery, but from something shifting far beneath the surface. The enemy was still out there, those creatures of crystalline bone and spectral limbs. But they weren't advancing. Not anymore. It was as if the planet itself had gone quiet, waiting for its next secret to be unearthed. He scavenged supplies, patched what wounds he could, then dug 3 graves with his bare hands. The soil was dry and metallic, like digging through rust. The makeshift markers were no more than broken rifle stocks and scavenged armor plates, but they were something. A name, a place, a final breath not completely forgotten. Night fell quickly here. It wasn't like Earth's night. No stars, only a thick curtain of cosmic dust that swallowed all light. The only glow came from the ruins in the distance, ancient structures jutting from the ground like obsidian teeth. He'd noticed them before in satellite scans, but paid them little attention. Now, alone and abandoned, they called him with quiet persistence. His suit's internal systems flagged his vitals, low oxygen, deteriorating pulse. He ignored them. He crossed the black field slowly, careful not to disturb the silence. The wind had stopped. Even the atmosphere seemed to watch him, breathless. The ruin rose taller than he expected. Whatever race had built it was long dead, but the structure pulsed faintly with energy, deep violet lines snaking across its surface, like veins under cold skin. As he stepped closer, the hum grew stronger, not mechanical, but alive. It resonated through his boots, into his chest, into his bones. A doorway split open in the rock. He stared at it. This wasn't human technology. It wasn't even enemy technology. It was something older, untouched by wartime. He could still turn back, build a shelter, wait for death, a noble ending, or a quiet one. But something in him refused to die with the rest. He stepped through. The doorway sealed behind him, and the light swallowed his shadow. The air inside the structure was unnaturally still, thick, almost gelatinous, as if time itself hesitated here. Elias moved forward slowly, boots scraping against a floor that shimmered with an oil-slick sheen, reflecting not his shape, but fragments of memory. A whisper traveled through the walls, too low to understand, too constant to ignore. It wasn't a language he knew, but he felt it just the same. Welcome or warning, he couldn't tell. His helmet's sensors flickered, then failed entirely. The HUD dimmed, diagnostics scrambled. The suit wasn't made for places like this. Places that bent physics to whim and rewrote energy into emotion. With a grunt, Elias unsealed his helmet. The air smelled of electricity and dust. He expected decay. Instead, it was sterile preserved. The corridor narrowed, then opened into a chamber shaped like a hollowed sphere. At its center hovered a geometric structure, rotating slowly, layers upon layers of interlocking shapes that defied logic. He approached, drawn by a force that felt neither magnetic nor gravitational but personal, like it knew him. As he stepped within reach, the shapes stopped spinning. The light inside them flared, and something vast stirred awake. "You are alone," a voice said, not aloud but inside his mind. It wasn't invasive. It was precise, ancient, and unbearably sad. He staggered back, hand on his sidearm. "What are you?" "A memory," the voice replied. "And a mirror." The chamber darkened as tendrils of light stretched from the construct, not toward him but around him, weaving a tapestry of stars across the walls. Constellations twisted, nebulae bloomed. Systems lived and died in seconds. He watched entire galaxies collapse into silence. He should have been afraid. But something about the vision soothed him, like recognition after long absence. "What is this place?" "A vault," the voice said, "built to hold knowledge too heavy for time. Abandoned, like you." The word stung more than he expected. "I'm not like you." "No," the voice agreed. "You still have flesh to mourn." He stepped closer. "Why show me this?" The construct responded by pulsing once. A beam of light struck the chamber floor, revealing a pod, smooth, metallic, just large enough for a human form. Inside was a husk, human once, or something that tried to be, bones fused with wires, muscles threaded with crystal filaments. It looked like a failed resurrection. She volunteered. The voice said, "To carry what we could not." The stars broke her. Elias stared. "You want me to become that?" "No," it said. "We offer the choice. Stay and learn, or leave and forget." He turned away, jaw tight. "There's no one left to remember me." The voice was silent for a long time. "Then there is no harm in being reborn." The air in the chamber shifted again. The pod hissed open. Energy crackled along its edge. Elias stood still, heart racing. Every part of him screamed to run, but something older, deeper, something forged in those weeks of solitude and silence, told him he had already died. This wasn't survival. This was metamorphosis. He stepped forward. The light enveloped him. Pain was immediate and indescribable. Every cell in his body ignited, deconstructed, restructured. His mind was peeled apart, layer by layer, each memory cataloged, tested, then returned. Not all of them survived. Faces blurred, voices faded, but the ache of betrayal remained. That wound they could not erase. He didn't know how long it lasted, seconds or centuries. When he emerged, the air felt different against his skin. Lighter, colder. He looked down and barely recognized his own hands. Sleek, steady, reinforced with fibers that hummed softly beneath the surface. Strength coiled in every joint. Vision sharpened. Senses extended. He could hear the chamber's pulse, feel the stars beyond the crust of the world. But the voice was gone. The construct now floated in silence, its duty fulfilled. Elias looked around. The chamber no longer shimmered. Whatever knowledge it had shared, it had done so with finality. He turned and walked out, his footsteps silent now, almost weightless. The wind outside greeted him again, but the world no longer looked hostile. It looked small. The battlefield he once bled across was nothing but a scar in the dust. He could see farther now, beyond mountains, beyond orbit. He could feel the slow turn of the planet beneath his feet. They had left him behind, but they hadn't buried him. He gazed up at the dark sky and whispered to himself, "I remember." And far above, a star flickered. 50 years passed, but for Elias Varr, time had become a suggestion rather than a chain. He returned not in a ship, but as light, stitched to the fabric of subspace and folded between gravitational threads. The human systems had grown fat and loud in his absence, colonies swelling like tumors across the stars, trade lanes thick with arrogance and denial. But beneath the shimmer of progress, rot waited, and it recognized him long before anyone else did. He emerged at the edge of Arcturus Prime, once a war-torn outpost, now the polished capital of the Terran ascendancy. Towering glass cities gleamed beneath the orbiting rings, satellites whispering data into the void. Elias stood at the heart of a plaza surrounded by millions and felt nothing. No ceremony, no shock, no welcome. They didn't see him, not truly. To them, he was another drifter in weathered armor, a relic out of place, out of time. But the moment he spoke, the world began to shudder. "I request audience with Admiral Gorental," he said at a gate lined with armed guards. The words came out calm, calculated. The guards exchanged glances. "That man's been dead 30 years," one replied. Elias tilted his head. "Then the ones who inherited his betrayal will do." They told him to move along. One placed a hand on his chest. It was a mistake. He didn't raise a weapon. He didn't shout. He simply blinked, and the power he'd tried so long to restrain flickered to the surface. Gravity reversed for less than a second. Not enough to kill, but enough to send every guard to their knees, gasping, their senses swimming. Their rifles shattered midair, reduced to molecular dust. He walked past them without another word. News spread like fire in dry brush. The incident was recorded, analyzed, denied, then quietly classified. But it was too late. Some remembered the name. Some even remembered the voice. The face was harder. He hadn't aged, but the fury behind it had shape, and shape could not be mistaken. By the time the first dreadnought tracked its trajectory, he was already at the edge of another system, staring down at a world that once housed a command center from the old war. Now it was a corporate hub, filled with the descendants of those who had looked the other way when he was left to die. He walked into their boardroom uninvited. No doors opened for him. They simply ceased to exist. "I am not here for blood," he told them. "I'm here for truth." They trembled before him, suits drenched in sweat, faces pale behind layers of augmentation. One tried to run. Another tried to reason. Neither succeeded. He showed them the logs, his final transmissions, their denials, their signatures. One woman, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, whispered, "We thought you were dead. You made sure of it. We did what we had to. You were a liability." He looked at her with eyes that no longer blinked. "And now I'm a mirror." He left the building in silence. Behind him, their sun dimmed, not gone, but sickened, flickering like a candle in the wind. The Terran ascendancy called it sabotage. A crisis team was formed. Drones flooded space, tracking anomalies. But every report said the same thing. No ships, no fleets, no weapons. Just an energy signature tied to no known source. A ripple that defied math. A ghost whose touch could wither a system. They began to call him the Starbreaker. Colonies farther out started to collapse. Not from attack. No weapons fired. No demands issued. But from entropy, accelerated and cruel. Reactors failed. Moons drifted off orbit. Time slowed around key installations. People vanished, always one step behind him. The ascendancy tried to predict his path, to reason with it. But Elias no longer walked roads they could understand. And still, he said nothing more. Not until they sent the old admiral. Admiral Nix Morel, one of the last living officers from the war, long retired and quietly condemned for decisions buried under state secrets. They resurrected her with nanites and promises, clothed her in a uniform that no longer fit, and begged her to speak to him. He met her on a dead moon. "I should have come back for you," she said, voice brittle with age and regret. He stood motionless, eyes fixed on a black sky. "We were told you were gone, that retrieval would be suicide." "I held the line for 7 days," Elias replied, each word like stone, "and you buried me for it." She didn't defend herself. She didn't weep. She only said, "What will you do now?" He looked at her, through her, and whispered, "I will teach them what abandonment means." And then he was gone, leaving her standing there, beneath a sky with one less star. The stars had begun to dim. One by one, across distant quadrants, solar flares flickered out prematurely, their final light swallowed in silence. No supernova, no warning, just the quiet death of suns, as if the universe were being unthreaded with patient, deliberate hands. Across the galactic core, panic rippled. Scientists scrambled for explanations that didn't exist. The Terran Ascendancy convened emergency sessions, but the math refused to lie. Entire systems were vanishing from the cosmic web. The pattern was slow, but unmistakable. Elias stood alone on the edge of a forgotten world. Once a battlefield, now a tomb of quiet dust. His gaze turned upward, not in wonder, but in judgment. This was not vengeance. It was memory weaponized. He was no longer a man in armor. The flesh had long given way to something more elemental. He carried starfire in his bones, gravitational weight in his presence. He didn't walk so much as ripple through space, a contradiction given form. The star core within him pulsed faintly, its voice distant but constant, a dying echo of the vault that had reshaped him. "You are unraveling the balance," it whispered. "This path ends in silence." "I was forged in silence," Elias replied. "Let them hear it." The final remnants of the Ascendancy dispatched fleets, desperate to contain what they now understood could not be killed. They came armed with weapons designed to pierce suns and crack planetary crusts. They came with voices pleading for mercy, treaties, compromise. He answered with a wave of his hand. The ships folded inward on themselves, crushed not by force but by the weight of his will. No debris remained, only the sudden stillness where a fleet once hovered. He moved to the next system, where the descendants of his betrayers had built temples to power. Skyscrapers bathed in artificial light crumbled like ash as he passed. People fled, praying to gods that had never answered. Elias made no speeches. He left no mark but absence. In one of the last surviving command chambers, a voice dared to speak to him directly. "We know who you are. We know what was done. But this is extinction." Elias turned slowly, eyes like dying stars. "I am not extinction," he said. "I am remembrance." They begged him to stop, to rebuild, to lead. He smiled, and it was the saddest thing in the galaxy. "I led once," he said, "and when I fell, you turned away." From orbit, the system sun flared suddenly, pulsed twice, then went dark. It wasn't violent. It was quiet, almost peaceful. The star core surged in protest. "You are more than pain. Pain is all they left me. You have become something vast. Let it be for more than destruction." Elias stood on the ruined crust of what had once been a thriving colony and reached deep within himself, not into anger, but into memory. He saw the faces of those he had buried, the names scratched into metal, the silence after the last voice fell. He had carried that silence like a weapon, sharp and unrelenting. But now he wondered what came after the last star died. He knelt in the dust, the first gesture of humility in what felt like eons. Above him, something shifted. The stars he had extinguished, some flickered once more, dim, tentative, like embers unsure of reigniting. The star core whispered with cautious hope, "You are not beyond choice." His hand sank into the soil. He poured himself into it, not to destroy, but to return. Energy flooded from him, unraveling into the planet's crust, the sky, the atmosphere. A pulse radiated outward, soft, golden, warm. Not fire, not gravity. Life across distant systems. Light stirred where there had been none. The death he had sown paused. The balance hesitated. In the end, Elias did not speak. He left no farewell. His body, if it could still be called that, dissolved into particles finer than dust. The wind carried him away. The world remained scarred but still spinning. And somewhere in the quiet between stars, a signal pulsed once more. It was faint, ancient, and human. He had been left behind. But he had not been forgotten.